Hello, everyone. You are here with me, Dr. Judy, WTF, with the Freud. And we're going to delve deeply into a very, very demanded and in demand topic on the damaging effects of narcissistic mothers on their children. And this is a call-in show, everybody. So I'm hoping that you will get on the couch with your emotional ouch. And there's a lot of ouch about being mothered by a narcissistic mother. And we're going to look at it through the mind map perspective, which most of you are very familiar with, but I'm going to go over it carefully so that we can mind map the specific wound of narcissistic parenting and the effects on the psyche. So for those of you who are not familiar with the mind map, I want to go over it with you. And I see the mind map as a system of healing that begins with identifying childhood wounds, how they react within our psyche, and how they eventually encode in our being in the form of negative core beliefs. Core beliefs like I'm not good enough or I'm not lovable. Oh, we have a call-in. Okay, so I'm just going to finish this thought quickly. So we're going to be decoding the past, recoding the future. Obviously, this is a pertinent topic because we already have a call-in. So hi, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. And who's calling, please?
Hi, Dr. Judy. My name's Courtney. I'm calling from Syracuse, New York.
Oh, very nice to meet you, Courtney. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, actually wanted to write you a letter recently, and I was like, oh, I'll just call into your show. But I recently finished your book,
Okay.
and it was a total blessing that I came upon your shows recently. They've been so helpful. So
Thank you very
definitely
much.
yeah. So with my mom, who certainly is NPD, I'm at the point I'm recovering. I'm now in the healing process, and I'm recovering from 7 years of just that breakthrough period. So I've reached the point now where I've forgiven her completely.
Okay.
I can honestly say that I love my mom, and I can see her as she is and accept her as she is. I just had a couple of questions for you, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, of course. And I just want to preface it by saying that not everybody gets there, and sometimes it's not even appropriate to get there if you've been that abused and that if you've been so abused to the point where forgiveness is just not authentic for you, then it's understandable that some people just are not ready to do that or just don't think that
Yeah.
it's appropriate. So yes, please
And
go ahead.
I did go through seasons in my life where I was completely no contact. One time was for a year, and then even recently, it was for 4 months. So I totally agree with that. Sometimes you do have to take a break, and we actually live in different states, which helps as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but I guess the biggest thing that I struggle with is loneliness.
Okay.
I've always felt alone, and I've been grieving her and the mother I didn't have for really 7 years.
Wow.
And yeah. And now she's going through some health ailments, and I honestly don't know how much longer she will be around. Like, it could be a year or so, and I've already been struggling with that. Like, I'm like grieving her already, like missing. I'm just holding on to the mom that I have, just anything, the attention, the phone calls, just anything. I struggle with that. I struggle with loneliness, I guess.
Are you in a relationship?
I am married.
You are married. And
I
so that's interesting. I just want the audience to be aware that just because one is in a relationship, it doesn't guarantee that that hole in the soul, as I like to refer to it, is going to be filled. So let's talk about grieving your mother. Let's talk about your loneliness. Let's talk about the effects of narcissism on the child, and particularly mother to daughter. Okay. And now that she is dying and she is needing your attention, are you caretaking her at this particular point in time?
No, no,
Okay.
we just talk like daily on the phone.
Okay. And how's the connection? Are you able to access any empathy from her? Are you able to have
Mm-hmm.
enough of a relationship? Has she ever been able to self reflect and self correct?
No, and
No.
that's the kind of the epiphanies that I've had. It's a very superficial relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She'll like send money sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no love. There never has been love. She's buried off. She's bordered up from love, and I think that this chronic depression and sadness that I've had, I've realized that I've lived a life without love for so long,
Yes.
and your book talks about that,
Yes.
a lot.
There's also an episode, a YouTube episode that I did maybe a year ago or so. I think it was exactly a year ago, called "Grieving the Parent You Never Had," and I'd like you to view that
Mhm.
episode. I think it'll be
Okay.
very pertinent to you. And you see,
Mhm.
we assume that we have parents. we we have we have them in the physical world. Usually we could see them, we could hear them, we can interface with them, but sometimes we don't really have them because they themselves are not fulfilled and full of, I call them, emotional nutrients. So when your mother is coming from a place of emptiness, or she's coming from her own narcissistically defended place, then she has little to give. Okay?
Mhm.
And if she has little to give, then you're basically not receiving all of the psychological nutrients that are necessary to form a healthy human psyche. And that fulfillment, and we'll call it fulfillment, is lacking. And so, therefore, there's a sense of loneliness. Because part of the system gone wrong in this system of narcissism is that the parent, the mother in your case, puts herself before her child. And why does that
Mhm.
happen? Because it's multi generational. Because for
Mhm.
whatever reason, she may not have been put first either by your grandmother or your grandfather. And then this cycle is passed down generation to generation. And now you, as the daughter, are in a very special role. And especially now that she's not feeling well, guess who has to be the giver?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
happens to you who has not been given to, and you're running on empty, and now you have to pull out of your being
Mhm.
empathy, generosity, patience, love, so on. And so, what do you think that that does to a person?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I want to. So in your book, like you talk about the breakdown, breakthrough, and so
Yes.
really the breakdown was 7 years, and I made a mess of my life. It got really ugly. I just projected all this rage onto just so many people in my life, and I'm now,
Okay.
processing it and evolving. And so, like another question I have for you is, how do you move on? Like, how do you, when you've changed so much and you've had all these epiphanies, but everyone else knows you a certain way, and everyone else stays the same.
Okay,
How do
that's
you
a
evolve from that?
great question because I let me just go backward for a moment. You were saying something
Okay.
about what was the thing you said that you went through 7 years of breakdown and you were projecting a lot of anger onto other people. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is where the mind map is really useful, and I'll point to panel number 6, which is breakdown,
Mhm.
breakthrough, and this is where the truth conversations come into play within the system of processing emotions. And the truth is you were never really allowed to be authentic with your feelings
Mhm.
with your mother because she probably
Mhm.
couldn't stand your rage because that wasn't in her benefit. She couldn't really stand your feelings because it had nothing to do with her. And so basically, you had no place to put your feelings and you were probably imploding for many years.
Yes.
Okay? And so think about it as this place inside of you that's building and building and building, and you want to quell it, and you're a nice girl and you're trying to please your mother and so on and so
Yep.
forth and be politically correct about it. And what you
Mhm.
really want to say is, how they have it in books with the cross hatches and the exclamation marks, right? You want to say all these
Yeah.
nasty things are really in you. But if you think
Yeah.
about that, then you're going to start hating yourself because you're going to be
Right.
punished for even thinking. How dare you think that you don't love your mother? How dare you think that she's a bitch? How dare you wish her anything bad? So you keep these
Right.
feelings inside of you until it's just too much. And the depression, which I look at as anger turned inward, starts to be so painful that you start to project these feelings onto other people. And guess who these
Mhm.
feelings really belong to?
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm asking
So I've
you,
done a lot of
who
yeah.
do these
Oh,
feelings really
to,
belong to?
to my mother.
Exactly. And a lot of
Mhm.
therapies avoid this. They like to sidestep the fact that as a human race, we carry tremendous feelings toward our gods, towards our parents, both good and
Mhm.
bad. And so when we are not allowed to self express, when we have to repress, or when we have to project onto others and go sideways, then we are either going to hurt ourselves or we're going to hurt other people. And of course,
Mhm.
the blockage is that we can't directly express to our parent because our parent
Mhm.
is that brick wall who will never understand.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. So
Yep.
that's why it's unhealed. It's always
Yes.
unhealed because here's another episode I want you to listen to. The herder can't be the healer. The herder
Mhm.
can't be the healer. And why do I call the show Dr. Judy WTF? I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's really not because as a human race, we're doing a WTF, a what the Freud. We keep
Mhm.
repeating cycles and we keep going back to the people that hurt us as if we're going to have some kind of a epiphany and a grand
Mhm.
a grand welcoming of truth and a paradigm shift with them, and they're going to start crying and getting down on their hands and
Mhm.
knees and begging for your forgiveness. And guess when that's going to happen?
Mhm. Never.
Understood? Never. Yeah, never.
Well, so that's what I found. It was a WTF situation because I'd keep having these issues with other women, and every job I had, all these friendships I lost. I was always fight. People just let me down. I just turned my back on them. I was
Oh,
projecting all of that.
that's
So
right.
after 7 years of this, I finally realized, hello, and now I'm at the place where I can forgive and express love and forgive. I need to forgive myself.
Okay,
Hmm.
before you jump to forgiveness, I think that a step is missing there. Okay, and
Hmm.
go back to my book, panel number 6, and go back to the case study of the mother and the daughter, Roberta and Cindy.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
and by the
Yep.
way, audience, I just want you to know that if you sign up for a free consultation, you will automatically get a free copy, a PDF copy of the book. So all you have to do is go to my website, Dr. Judy WTF, and ask for a 15-minute consultation. And we will go over what is hurting you, your symptoms, and your breakdowns, and you will get a copy of that book. So going back to your particular situation, you cannot forgive until you've released the toxins. It's very
Hmm.
important. It's very important because when you're forgiving too soon, you're sugarcoating that anger. You're
Hmm.
sugarcoating the grief. You're not allowing
Hmm.
the psychological poison, so to speak, to come out of you.
Hmm.
And then you're putting this artificial cap of forgiveness on that poison and you never heal.
Hmm.
Okay, does that make
Um,
sense?
it does. It does. I'm sorry. I just want to keep asking you because I know you're busy, but and I have you on the phone. But another effect of daughters of narcissistic abuse, a huge effect, is shame. Um,
Yes.
And
How
so
dare you? How
there's
dare
some,
you have feelings of anything negative toward your mother? How dare you? And by the
yeah.
way, it's fine that you're keeping me on the phone because these are issues that everyone can identify with, and you're speaking to many people who have this pain, many people who have these questions, and so that's why I am going to answer them, and then of course I'll take other callers, and you're welcome to call in 323-843-2826. But go ahead and ask any other question that you had in mind.
So after the breakdown, and now I'm at the rebuilding phase, again, where I'm rebuilding my reputation, I'm rebuilding my self-esteem. Any tips
Yes.
that you have on that? And also, so with the shame, what did I want to ask you about? Shoot.
Oh, I know what you were going to ask me. It
Um,
was a great question. You said, how do you deal
yeah,
with the people who see you the same way that don't see your growth?
yeah,
Wasn't that the question?
yeah.
Okay. So, for you and the audience, when you have gone through major life changes and you go back, it's kind of like, let's say that you go back to a high school reunion and everybody knew you as that little shy kid that, that picked her teeth in the back of the classroom, okay? They'll see you that way. But then let's say you present otherwise, they may see you that way anyway because they're seeing you with old eyes.
Hmm.
Okay? So nobody's going to
Hmm.
bother to really update the files. It's a very tricky kind of thing because when you keep going back into friendships that refuse to acknowledge your growth, a few things are happening. Number one, you're doing another WTF. You're really in the presence of people who want to keep you stuck, who don't want to
Hmm.
open their vision of you to a larger vision and see your new growth. Why? Maybe you're too threatening to them. Maybe they don't know how to deal with this new form of you. Maybe it instigates a lot of jealousy within them. Okay, so you have to understand that sometimes if people will not expand with your expansion, you have to pick a new group of people,
Hmm.
kind of
Okay.
like a fresh,
Okay.
clean slate of people with fresh eyes. And also remember that
Mm.
when you've been injured by a narcissistic mother or father, then you're going to
Hmm.
tend to pick narcissistic friends, narcissistic husbands, narcissistic lovers, narcissistic
Yep.
bosses. Okay, why? Because of the WTF, because we're driven that way.
So
Okay?
with the shame, so now I'm trying to rebuild and have this new life. And with the shame, like how do I feel like your past and you have these secrets, you have shame, you can't look people in the eye. Like you need self-confidence, which is daughters of narcissistic mothers severely lack. How do I build that?
How do you build that? Number one, you understand that you were not the cause of part one of your life, that you were in a hostage situation, you were at the service of your mother, and so she did throw you under the bus in her own way. And who you became was to serve her. And whatever that looked like, she didn't care if it didn't build your self
Hmm.
esteem. She didn't care if it made you shy. She didn't care if it lowered your self esteem and you came out with core beliefs of feeling worthless and unloved. She wasn't concerned about that as long as she got her love and she got her self sense of worth met, which really didn't happen either because her hole in the soul was too deep and you couldn't pump enough love into her to have it
Hmm.
stick. Okay? So
Hmm.
now we go back to shame on you for being that way. Shame on you for however you looked at that time and behaved at that time. So do you understand that you're
Hmm.
not the cause of part one of your life?
Okay. Yes.
Okay?
Hmm.
So what do you do with that? You understand full well that you've been at the effect. And this is not who you are. This is the reaction to being the daughter of a narcissistically injured mother. Understood?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
somehow you have to separate this within your own mind and understand this is not who you are. This is how you've
Okay.
been morphed. And now
Okay.
you can see that's not fair to you, is it? If you've been morphed this way because that was the only way that you can receive love, that was the only way that you can receive positive regard or positive reinforcement, well, then children will please their parents. They have to. They're in the hostage situation. So can you see that for yourself? Can everyone who's listening to the show understand that you had no choice? You were at the effect because children naturally want to please their parents. So parents will take advantage of that fact.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm 32 years old, and I just want to be done with the pain. I just want to move on from it.
Okay,
I don't want it to haunt me
okay,
forever.
so I have an insight / suggestion, okay? So the insight is I think that you're not done with the anger. I think it's very difficult for you to tap into that anger because your mother is dying. Okay. So in some sense, it's bad timing, isn't it? Like, oh my God, how can I be angry at my dying mother? That's really not cool. For the process of your healing, it doesn't mean that you have to be angry at that dying mother today, who she is. And at the same time, you still have to process the anger of what this person did to you and left you with. So separate those two out so that you can somehow live with yourself and live with the fact that you want some kind of connection with your dying mother. Okay?
One more question.
Yeah.
One more question. So, because I was in that breakdown and I was replaying what I was raised with, what I was brought up with, I have been abusive, like emotionally, towards my husband.
Right.
And now that I'm waking up to this and trying to change my life, how do I forgive myself for that? How do I move past that with him?
Okay, how you do it is go to the Peaceful Healing Dialogue, which is in my book, and anybody can access that because it's on my website. And what you need to do more than ask the person for forgiveness is to self-reflect and self-correct and let your husband know that you're now aware of what was going on, that you couldn't hold the poison, that he was the unhappy recipient of the poison. You now see it clearly. You've learned your lesson. In there, if you want to apologize, fine. You know, I'm not a big fan of apologies because a lot of people abuse them. Oh, I'm so sorry I stole your money. Well, I'll do it tomorrow again. Oh, I'm so sorry that I called you names, but they don't change their behavior. So you let your husband not only know that you're aware, but you show him by stopping the behavior.
Okay.
Okay. And if you slip up, which is human, you let him know that it's okay for him to bring it to your conscious awareness. Okay? Understood?
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Judy.
Okay, you're so welcome. Thank you so much. And do call in for consultation. And it's just nice to have the PDF copy of the book also, because then it's all in color and you can have it on your laptop and access it that way too.
Okay, great. Thank you for writing it. It's helped me more than years of therapy. So thank you. God bless you.
You're so welcome. God bless you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So I hear this in my office every day, and it's a very subtle kind of thing because it's not like an injury where you're being slapped and it's obvious. It's an internal injury, and I want to talk a little bit more about issues that adult children of narcissists deal with. And this is an article by, I'm trying to give credit where credit is due here. I'll try to find it. Okay, so first of all, people who suffer this way don't really understand that there was something wrong with their childhood. It's not that blatant. Some people, many people, as a matter of fact, will call me and say, oh my God, I just realized that I'm suffering from narcissistic abuse. They just don't put two and two together at all because the first person that they're going to blame for anything is themselves. Alice Miller talks about children who would rather be the bad child in the good world. Alice Miller wrote a book called The Trauma of the Gifted Child, and she was a psychoanalyst and a brilliant one at that. And she came up with a brilliant line that I refer to a lot, which says that children would rather be the bad ones and the parents are always going to be idealized. And I think we have another call-in. Obviously, this is a very pertinent topic, epidemic, I would say. And hello, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. And who's this, please?
Hi, my name's Richard.
Hi, Richard. Thank you so much for calling in. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Florida.
Okay. And so what's going on in your life relevant to narcissistic mothers?
Well, my mother, I'm 53 years old.
Okay.
I'm well past it, I think, for the most part. But my mother, growing up, I think, was borderline with narcissistic tendencies.
Okay.
It was really brutal. I've spent most of my life getting over that.
And
And
what
I
did
think to a
that
large
look
degree I've
like?
been-
What did that look like from your perspective when you say borderline with narcissistic tendencies? What was she doing? What were her comments like? Just kind of clarify what that environment looked like, felt like, so on.
Well, it was just very chaotic, but somewhat predictable.
Okay.
People were either all good or all bad. People were either, if they were in her favor, they were fine, they were great, there was nothing wrong with them, they were the best people ever.
Yes.
And those that fell out of her favor were just, horrible, awful, terrible people with no redeeming, qualities at all. They were probably even mean to small kittens and stuff, I mean, it was just such a black and white way of looking at people.
And that's
when
the
that was
splitting. Okay, that's the I call it the cracked lens of perception and the splitting, because for a person to organize their world, isn't it easier just to split it into black and white, bad, good, right, wrong? It's kind of like an underdeveloped way of seeing the world, because a more developed person would look at somebody and say, that person has some really nice qualities, and then that person has some not such nice qualities. And they would be able to more hold the gray area. They'd be able to somehow manage the ambivalence, but not your mother. She had to do it one way or the other. Okay, so what did she do to you?
Well, she, you never knew when she was going to crack. To some extent it was predictable, like at any festive occasion where a holiday or something like that, Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthday, she'd find some way to sabotage it, and it was always your fault.
Always your fault. Right.
Oh, yeah. It was, you were the cause of it, and she'd be in hysterics and yelling and screaming and crying, and, and it was like, for example, on her wedding day, I was about 7 years old. She married what would be my dad. Later on, when he adopted me, she's sitting in the living room in this new house that we were in, that they were renting. Just got married, sitting there in her wedding gown, and said, "Well, it's your wedding gift to me. You can go clean the kitchen." So my brother and I went in there, but we don't know where anything goes.
Okay,
So
you're
we'd ask
7
her,
years
you know,
old,
where-
right? 7 years old?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Where does this go? And then she became very angry, and you're trying to ruin my wedding day. You're doing this on purpose. If I have to come in that kitchen on my wedding day, it's going to be ruined. And and we just started putting things where we thought they ought to go.
Sure, of course.
Because we knew it was coming.
Right.
And she saw me put something in the wrong place, screaming and yelling, throws me out of the kitchen. Next thing you know, she's on her hands and her knees in her wedding gown on the kitchen floor, scrubbing the floor with a sponge, sobbing.
Wow.
And it was my fault,
Wow.
So this is the kind of world that I grew up in. Not to mention the extreme violence, beating my head against the wall, tile wall, the bathroom floor by my hair, and slam my head up against the wall over and over and over repeatedly. That kind of stuff happened all the time,
Yeah.
So as I grew up, I was a very, very angry person. And I had a tendency to be violent. And later on, I started to understand that a lot of that, and I didn't like myself at all. I hated myself, and tried to go through my life pretending to be who I thought others wanted me to be in order to accept me.
Okay, so stop for a minute, because I want to take a moment to mind map this with you so you can understand what the Freud is going on here. First of all, can you hear the multi-generational voices in your mother's head? Let's go back a generation or more, and let's say that her mother is being ultra critical of her, and her mother's slamming her head into the floor, or her father is. I don't know what went on in her childhood, but I can assure you that she didn't get these behaviors from the air, okay? And now she couldn't contain these feelings, and guess who she's projecting them onto, right?
Me. Yeah.
Right. She can't hold them. And so as you soak in these horrible emotions, on top of which you're being beaten and slammed and so on, you are incorporating your mother's voice that she's telling you are who you are. You're bad. You don't know what you're doing. You're a loser. You'll never be good enough. And so that's the psychovirus that I refer to in the system. So now you see, now you're starting to hate yourself. And what are you doing? You're basically repeating a broken record in your head. That's your mother. So that's not you. It's your mother in you, and you regurgitating it and repeating it upon yourself. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that at this point.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been working on this most of my life, just out of, self-preservation. I think if I hadn't started working on it, I'd have been dead a long time ago.
Or killed somebody.
Yeah.
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 Because
it's a miracle that I'm alive and free today, from who I was and the things I did, my substance abuse issues that I used to have, and the crazy things I did. And I didn't know where any of it was coming from. And I started to figure it out. But I've changed a great deal. Medication has helped some of that.
Okay.
But, a lot of it has been just self-awareness and understanding where that comes from, and then trying to morph into the kind of man that I can respect and I can love. And being largely successful at that.
Okay.
Before I really got a grip on some of this stuff, I married this lady who ended up being a total textbook narcissist. We have two kids. And, my ambition in life is just to be the best father I can be to those two boys. They come first for me. My life took a back seat for me when they were born. And if there's anything I can do for these kids, to show them how much I love them, to spend time with them, anything I can do, I'm there.
Okay.
I'm with them half the time, but their mother, she's just a really sick person. I just, I'm concerned. I talk to them about setting boundaries and stuff with her, and I don't know what to do for them in order to help them defend themselves.
Okay, I'm gonna
they don't end up like I was.
I'm gonna tell you what you could do for them. Okay, how old are your children?
8 and 9.
Okay, what you could do for your children is to be their enlightened witness, okay? Because this is what you did. You don't want your children doing the same thing. You don't want your children blaming and shaming themselves for the craziness of their world. And so what you could do is straighten out their thinking. And so when they begin to get upset, or when they begin to show symptoms, you can help them connect the dots, and you can help them understand their inner world. Of course, what would be even better is if they got into some form of therapy, so that they can have somebody that they can tell the truth to, somebody that they can check in with that has their back. Because it's going to be a very difficult position for you. But can you see how you did a WTF? You married a person perhaps similar to your mother, and now you're passing to your next generation the similar psychovirus that you endured as a child. So imagine if you had an enlightened witness that said, you know, you're not crazy. The environment is crazy. And I hope you don't think this is your fault. And if you're feeling anger, it's understandable. If you're feeling hatred toward your parents, it's understandable. You're not a bad person because you feel these feelings. What happens is if when we don't express our feelings, they implode, they explode. So that's what I mean by if you don't take care of this stuff, you either end up depressed and suicidal, or you end up rageful and homicidal. Okay, that's why we're seeing all these shootings, school shootings, and shootings at clubs, and people who will project their anger on complete strangers, and then they'll turn the gun against themselves and off themselves. This is where it's coming from.
Well, I think that there's more to it than just that. I think these things have been around since generations ago.
That's
we
right.
didn't have all these school shootings until more recently. I think the media takes a much larger role in all of that than anything else. I mean, one of these things happen and you can't hear anything else on the news for weeks. And they make these kids into rock stars, these losers that go into schools and shoot them up. And one of these kids left a note saying, now I'm going to be famous. You know, I mean, they're looking for validation.
Yeah, so this, on a macro scale, you're right. It's not just the school shootings. That's just an example. But this problem of the implosions and the explosions have expressed themselves on macro scales, whether it's in that format or even in the form of war, where we're projecting on other countries and we're massively killing off people. So what is the remedy for your children is to help them self-reflect, self-correct, recognize the crazy, validate the crazy, help them to feel that it's not their fault, take the blame and the shame off of them. Imagine if somebody came into your world and took the blame and shame off of you, how much easier it would have been for you to process all of this.
Yeah, on the other hand, I feel a lot of guilt because I feel like they're in this situation because of me. If I'd have been healthier when I got married I'd have married the right person, and they're going through this because of my poor choices,
Okay, and so at some point your children may turn to you and say, Dad, because of you and your poor choice of who you chose for my mom, I'm suffering. And then what do you do with that? And they may turn to their mom and say, because of Dad, because of your poor choice of picking this person for Dad, it's important for children to have an arena to self-express. So if you deny that when they say that to you, then it shoves all the feelings back into them, and then they're going to swallow the poison. If you say, kids, you're right, I wasn't in a really good place. Unfortunately, I repeated some things from my multi-generational past. I'm glad that I'm aware of this today. You're not crazy. It's true. And we're going to stop the flow, and we're going to stop the madness. And next generation, this is what you're going to learn, because you don't want this to keep going to your family.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's unfortunately and fortunately, what do we do with our pain and suffering? Hopefully we grow from it, and hopefully we teach others how to grow from it. And that's the best we could do.
Yeah, they know they can talk to me anytime.
They're fortunate.
Every night before we say prayers and stuff at night, I ask, is there anything you need to talk about? There's no subject off, that's off the table. They can say talk about or ask anything they want.
And that's
and we talk about it honestly.
That's what you do. And
I tell them one thing I never heard growing up, that I'm imperfect and I make mistakes. And when I do, I own them,
That's the highest level. That's the highest level. When you can self-reflect in front of your children and own your own stuff, it's big, because then they can also copycat that in a good way and say, well, I'm not perfect either, and I get to correct on that, and I don't have to carry the blame and shame within myself, because I can grow from that. And I don't know if do you have a copy of my book?
I do.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I just got it.
Okay, really nice. And if you want a PDF copy, you just write me. And of course, you know that you can have a free consultation anytime, and we'll send you that PDF copy. And in the meantime, I understand how concerned you are that you picked this mother for them. And it seems that they're lucky enough to have a father that they could pretty much say anything to. And that makes
Oh
a
yeah.
world of difference. When you allow your children to express anything they want to you, then they don't
Mm,
feel that they're bad for having feelings. What a gift.
right.
So I think you're
No,
doing a
I
great
validate their
job.
feelings. You know.
That's
You're
awesome.
allowed to be angry. That's
Yes.
not something I ever had.
No,
You're allowed to
no.
be angry. You can be angry at me. That's just fine. Be
That's
angry at me.
that's right.
You know,
And that's right. And
but
remember,
talk to me about it so we can make it right.
it's such a far cry from if you were angry or your mother was angry. What did she do? She slammed your head into the floor, whatever. Okay, so it
Yeah,
was,
yeah, I get a fist in the face for sure.
right, right. Okay, well, thank you so much for calling in. And if there's anything
Well, thank
that
you, Doctor.
you're welcome. If there's anything that
I
I or the
appreciate it.
team can do for your family or children, just let me know, and we'll step in. Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that would be nice is if you could do like something, a show for kids, aimed towards kids that I could have them watch, so you could help explain some of the dynamics.
Okay.
I try to talk to them about some of those things, but to have a professional third party do it would be awesome.
I think that's a
Be a
great
great
idea.
tool.
As a matter of fact, my grandson was on a show with me, and he's I have a mind map video series that I created, and in the mind map video series, my grandson breaks down the mind map from a child's point of view. Okay,
Mm,
and I just want to say this because she's near and dear to my heart. Heather Dykes, who's been on my show several times, Overcoming Homelessness. She does this amazing artwork. This is my logo. She created this, and she does mind map puzzles for people, and she put together the mind map that children can now learn it by doing the puzzle, and so they can literally repair the human disconnect by putting the puzzle pieces together. So just let me know if you'd like something like that, or if anybody would like
oh
something
yeah.
like that, and Heather will do it up for you. And she's truly, truly an artist. And as a matter of fact, what I want to do is have one of my therapists who specializes with in children, Jillian Sorkin. I want to have her back on, along with my grandson, and so we can just have it out how to talk to kids. And
Hmm.
make it count and make it worthwhile and
Yeah,
validate them. So thank you for that
yeah.
suggestion. I'll take you up on it. Okay.
Oh, awesome, Doc. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay, have a
All right.
wonderful evening. Good night.
All right. God bless.
Okay, God bless. Okay, a lot of questions out there about effects of narcissistic parenting, and I think we have another call in. Geez, I'm going to have to do part 2 on this one. And you're on the couch with Dr. Judy. Who's this, please?
Nurali.
I'm sorry, say your name again?
Nurali.
Nirali, nice to meet you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from West Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, another call from Florida. Okay. Nice to meet you. Tell me what's going on in
Thanks.
your life.
Yeah, I have a very narcissistic mother. I'm 33, and I see a therapist, and I realized I had a pattern of actually isolating myself
Okay.
just to protect myself from being around other people because everything feels like an attack.
Yeah.
So recently I started going to a co-working space to work on my art and whatnot. And every day I come home and I bawl my eyes out. And I don't know where that's coming from.
Do you know
Like
what
by
you're
the-
crying about? Do you have any inkling?
Yeah. I mean, really what I'm hit with at the end of the day is a weight of shame that I did everything wrong, like from the way that I walked to the copying machine, to the things that I said in passing, maybe to somebody at the space. Like, it's to the point where I almost don't want to be there, but I do, like I enjoy it, but there's this weight of shame.
Okay, so let's go through the mind map
Mhm.
system to get some answers going around this. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your treatment by your mother and what you meant by her narcissistic expression of anything upon you.
Yeah, treatment wise, it was rage, like every day. I didn't even realize until my therapist and I had sat down and, I started to mentally calculate, like, this was like 3 hours every day. In my childhood, I had just drowned it out. And it really wasn't until, 6 years ago, maybe there's something with the 7 years, because it poured out of me, and it was anger and rage, and it was dreaming of suicide. And I'll admit it, there was also dreams of going the other way, of becoming famous and turning it all around in the face of her. However, I'm more realistic now, but it hits me, this pang of shame. It feels debilitating.
Okay, so I want to address a few factors here. Number one, can you hear your mother's voice in your head? Just like with the other caller, they internalize what mother is projecting into them, and you've done the same. So if your mother was critical, if your mother was rageful, then can you see how, let's go back to Dr. Alice Miller, the psychoanalyst, and what she said. Children would rather be the bad ones. Okay, they're the bad ones. The parents are the good ones. And so that stance stays, because if it doesn't, then that means that the kid is living in a dangerous world. If the parents are bad and they're good, that's terrible. Then, that's like any day you might be emotionally or physically dead. But if your parents are good and you're the bad one, then that gives you some semblance of control, right? So if you're only a little bit better, then the situation will be better. It puts more of the locus of control in you. So can you hear how your treatment of you is parallel to your mother's treatment of you?
Absolutely. And I think that it cycles me back to feeling anger, like in a way, how dare you,
Right. And I love that you said that, because I was just talking about this with a patient of mine today, and she's been so quiet on all fronts. And in her case, she has a very narcissistic father. She's been swallowing a lot, and now she's tapping into her anger. And I believe that part of this process is you find your indignation. Indignation is a pathway through. The mind map is a from, through, to. From the pain of childhood, the wounds, through the feelings, including the anger, and to the shift into a new way of being and seeing, and a new way of seeing yourself. Right now, you've got that cracked lens of perception, which is your mother's in your head. I call it the psychovirus. I have my own little terminology. And by the way, if you want a copy of my book, please just call and write me. I'll download the PDF to you. And in the back of the book, I have a bunch of terms called Dr. Judy-isms, and one of them is the psychovirus. So that psychovirus has entered your head and is literally destroying you with shame. Okay? And so what do we do about that in this process? We identify it. We identify it so that you don't have to identify with it. And this whole business of you're sobbing and, sometimes you're playing one role where you're completely the victim, and then you idealize yourself and put yourself up on the, so you go from suicidality to greatness, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So these feelings are not integrated yet. And so I wouldn't even be surprised if some of the feelings were homicide, suicide, because those are the two ends of the spectrum. If you can't kill yourself, you'll kill somebody else. But it's misdirected because it's the same answer. Who are you really angry at?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I am a good person. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I have admitted to my therapist that I do sometimes fantasize just of, like taking out my anger physically on my mother.
Yes.
Not that I would,
I
but
understand.
it's there.
Right. Of
Yeah.
course it's there. And the sad thing is that if we don't admit that it's there and process the feelings, then some people actually do off their parents, like the Menendez brothers. Remember them? They were
Yeah.
so abused
Yes.
that they just one day they decided to off their parents. So it's very, very crucial for mental health to in the context of a safe therapeutic environment, to express these feelings, because if you don't, they become repressed and they become depressed, or they get projected. And did you say that you project them on your husband, or no? Was that you who said that? No.
But I have projected on like all boyfriends practically. And so again, it goes back to that avoidance. Like now I just don't date because I'm afraid of like showing that, but I'm stepping out of it. One thing that really like struck me was the dreams that I was having when I was breaking through all of this. There was one night where it felt like my mother would always say, I'm a Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio. Scorpions are the best. And it must have stuck in my mind through childhood because I dreamt that a gigantic black scorpion was slithering out of my bathroom and towards me. And it was insanely terrifying, even at 33. And that's the thing. Like, I think my lesson right now is becoming one with that darkness. Like, you don't wake up and think you're that person that dreams of strangling their mother in this pretty little Palm Beach home. It doesn't happen, but it does.
This process, I just want to say this because of the time, I want to say this process is not politically correct, okay? It's not nice to have these thoughts about your mother. The black spider, it's interesting with the you mean as a sign, as a astrological sign, she's a Scorpio, is that what she was saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was also just a way to say, oh, I'm the best,
Yes.
because of whatever.
Yes.
Right.
Right. And in this being best, what is she doing? She's vampiring you, right? She's overtaking you. She's stinging you. She's poisoning you. Okay. So what a perfect dream in that sense, that your dream was showing her evilness, her poison, her taking you over. Okay, so what do you do about this? A lot of what you're doing in your therapy is you're expressing it, not repressing it. And I think there's more to express so that you don't keep projecting or swallowing the poison. There's more. Okay?
I like that. That's true.
And,
one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hypervigilance. I feel it now. Like I'm studying to become an Ayurvedic practitioner for Ayurveda. And, it's intense, but at the same time, I realize that I'm also monitoring my environment with every inch of my soul as though someone's going to come attack me.
Well,
and I think that exhaustion.
Of course. First of all, when we are at the mercy of narcissistic parents whose intentions are not the best toward us, they're always self-serving, then the trust foundationally is never built. So what is it putting us in? A paranoid state. Okay? So again, remembering you're not paranoid, you're having a paranoid reaction to an unsafe world. So again, what the system is designed to do, the mind map system is designed to do, is to straighten out being at the effect to being at the cause, understanding that you're identifying with this and wearing it and living it versus identifying it, which is isolating it and then destroying that old system so you can rebuild a new system. Okay, so the paranoia just makes perfect sense. No sense of safety. And again, I want to clarify this, and then I'll go to shrink that tune because I think we're just about out of time. So when we're living in an unsafe world, we tend to look at parents that set the bar. So if our parents were not out for our best interest, who would be? Right? We project that on other people. If they're supposed to be the people who take care of us and hold us precious and protect us, and they're not doing their job, then why would a stranger protect? So you see how you're projecting that out on the world? So this has to be cleaned.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just write to me and do request a free consultation. We're happy to do that. Do request a copy of the PDF. And by the way, if you haven't already, you and the audience, please subscribe to us, like us on Facebook if you like us, and sign up for that free consultation. And we are very available, and we also do a lot of Skype therapy as well. Okay, so just look at this whole thing as a system gone wrong. It's very, very insidious, just like a spider crawling around, okay? They're kind of hard to sometimes see and spot. And dreams are potent. They reveal truth. So thank you thank you so much for calling in and keep looking at this and stepping out of, looking at the darkness and going through it so that you can step into the light as you process this.
Thank you so much. You've been with me for 2 years, and you're a blessing.
Thank you so much for saying that. I do very much appreciate it. Okay.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you for calling in. Okay. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay. So it just, again, confirms to me what an epidemic, this system gone wrong. We're really in a kind of a dark phase. Maybe we've been there for a long, long time, and I know we're stepping into the light also. It's not only a darkness. And I want to go through a song quickly because I know we only have a couple of minutes. A song that Heather picked for me. What is the name of the song? Geez, I'll have to post that, okay? It's a song by Birdie, Words as Weapons. That's what it is. A song by Birdie, Words as Weapons. I feel your knife as it goes right in. I guess you can call that the mother or the spider. Cut to my core, but I'm not bleeding. All that you say, trying to make me small. Well, the bigger you get, the harder you fall. You use your words as a weapon, dear. And that's the devaluing, the words as a weapon. But your blades don't hurt when you have no fear. So this person has built up a defense. You think that you're deep under my skin, you're trying to keep me suffering. If you use your words as a weapon, then as a weapon, I'll shed no tears. Wow, this person is getting good at building up a defensive wall against this abuse. I'll shed no tears. You have my heart, but I lock it up and probably locks up on everybody else too. This burning flame has been burned enough. My windows cracked, but they can be replaced. Oh, that's optimistic. But your arm will tire throwing stones my way. You use your words as a weapon, but your blades don't hurt when you have no fear. So this is interesting because there's optimism here that they can change. They can replace the windows, okay? And they've built up an awfully big shell against this narcissistic abuse. You're trying to keep me suffering. Then as a weapon, I'll shed no tears. I feel your knife as it goes right in. So she's still feeling it. She understands what's happening. You're trying to keep me suffering. If you use your words as a weapon, then as a weapon, I'll shed no tears. I'll shed no tears. And that's the defense against the abuse. So this person has shut down panel 5 defense mechanisms. They've turned shut down and cold. So thank you so much for listening and tuning in. And please do write, call, and request free consultation, and subscribe to our channel and suggest topics. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night.